And hi, hello friends, how we doing? Thank you for your patience this evening. There were some technical difficulties on the StreamYard end, and I was running a tad behind, and so just everything happened. I'm your host, Logan Morris. Welcome into another edition of the Race Nail, and I personally believe we have evolved from camping. There's a fun Logan tidbit for the week, but if you'd like more commentary on that, you can leave a comment down below. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode 37. It's titled I'm Feeling 22. And at the end, it will feature the full scale interview with PDRA, leadership member Mark Beatty, who we had a great chat with him late last week about his future at the PDRA, and there's a lot of fun tidbits to talk about in that interview. But first, we got to talk some racing, and then you'll see that interview in full. Guarantee you at the end of this here episode, ladies and gentlemen. But what do you say for now? We go ahead and we get to what we call the Race Week Rewind. Alright, let's talk about it. The reason it's called I'm Feeling 22 is because even year Logano might be here. He got it done again, folks. Joey Logano got it done again. And he's putting people on notice, right? He's putting people on notice. For a long time, Penske has been in a slump. Everybody but Ryan Blaney, and even he hasn't lived up to his own lofty expectations. But Joey Logano has been absolutely on a heater since we've hit this short track portion of the schedule. Now, we know North Wilkesboro, he dominated there, and look, North Wilkesboro puts itself out to be that kind of track. Richmond, though. Richmond, sometimes yes, sometimes no. You knew he was going to be a contender given their short track prowess. But let's be honest, the last 2 years, it's been Austin Dillon. And so we weren't exactly sure what we were walking into with Richmond. But Joey Logano gets his second victory of the campaign, and at this point, you have to wonder, is even year Logano here? Now, there are those that say he's only a 3-time champion because of the playoff era. I don't know whether that's true or not. And even if it is, everybody else was under that same format. So I don't know that it is quite the dig or quite the gotcha that people think it is. Like, well, everybody else had the playoffs. Everybody else now got the chase. I mean, we're all playing by the same rules. Whether we like the rules or don't like the rules, they are the same rules. And so, very interesting in that regard of, you know, the year Logano thing has been really in full. You know, we've talked a lot about it. Even years, Joey Logano. And so far this year wasn't to be the case. But North Wilkesboro woke up a sleeping giant, and then at Richmond, that giant came out to feast. But is he a championship contender? Don't get me wrong. He dominated Richmond. He earned that win. I'm not taking that away from Joey Logano. But until I see more from beyond the short track program, I don't know if this is the even year run that he always gets on. I need to see more on the bread and butters, the mile and a halves. The non-short tracks. Now we're going to another arguably short track in New Hampshire this weekend. So I expect another strong run for him. I expect another strong run for Penske Satellite Team partner Wood Brothers Racing and Josh Berry as well. That's another short track ace. And so, this is a great run. Much needed. It injects much needed life in the team. I think it makes Paul Wolf's seat a lot cooler. There were some rumblings online, some chatter from Logano fans that maybe it was time for Paul Wolf to part ways. Now I think those rumors have been nipped in the butt And so I just personally think that until we see more out of the mile and a half program, it is tough to say, man, that is a championship contender. I'm not saying he ain't making the chase. He clearly is making the chase. He's clearly going to make. He might be about to make that run. That run we all know Joey Logano can make. But hear me out. Hear me out, people. And let your voice be heard in the comments below. We'll get to them. We'll get to them. We want to hear them. Can we really say, like, oh, he's a definite championship contender until we see more from the short tracks? But you just, until he shows it on the mile and a half and the 2 miles, because let's look at our first race. Our first race of the chase, Darlington. On a track like that, Logano hasn't done much all year. Now, he's not out here running 30th, but he hasn't been the usual championship form. So until we get there and kind of see how things are slicing, maybe, just maybe, we pump the brakes on big-time championship contender. Now, again, Joey Logano is always a championship contender in some ways. Right? I mean, he is a 3-time champion for a reason. Playoff schmayoff, you're a 3-time champion. And that pedigree deserves respect, and that gives you credibility, and that shows that Penske 22 team knows how to get it done. But again, my question is, until we see more from the mile and a half program, are we sure this is the same even year Logano thing that we talk about every even year? Are we positive? Are we sure? I'm just asking. I'm just asking. And so for me, I want to know what you think. Leave a comment below. Is even year Logano here? Is this a run that he sustains to become a legit championship contender? Because everybody in the 16 is legit championship contenders, but we all think it's going to be the top 6 or 7 that really kind of duke it out. Right? We all think if you're on that back half, you got troubles. We all kind of think that. It's going to take a special run. So you let me know in the comment down below. I want to hear from you. We'll read them. We look forward to that. Other takeaways from Richmond. There's a lot of talk about where Richmond should stand on the schedule, right? A lot of talk. Just, some say get it off the circuit, right? Some say that it's worn out, it's too old, it's this, it's that. And we've already got a couple races in that Virginia market. Well, I have bad news for you anti-Richmond folks. It is the first race of the chase in 2027, likely due to how Labor Day falls next year, but it's the first race of the chase. And so it will be back on the schedule, and it will be in a pivotal spot on the schedule. The kickoff to the 2027 chase is Richmond Raceway. There's a lot of people that go, man, kind of cringe at that. Now, there were some days that I was surprised about. I thought Ty Gibbs would be stronger, and it isn't just because he was rocking a Victory Junction scheme. I think short tracks have been his bread and butter. I thought Toyota as a whole would be a little bit stronger because they've been the Incredible Hulk all year long. So that was surprising. Again, Ford is starting to figure some things out. Josh Berry was solid all day long. Had a bit of damage later in the race, and it clearly kind of set his car back some. But I mean, he was in the conversation much of the night. Much of the night he was in the conversation. So, and then the other big thing of the race, the other big thing at Richmond, and there's a lot to get to, but I want to talk about this. Kyle Larson finished P6. And then, he was racing in Iowa. doing his dirt stuff, and that's his passion. That's his bread and butter, and he's very passionate about that. And it was kind of known that, because it was the Knoxville Nats, that hey, I won't be able to race the big show because I got to be in Richmond. And then, as fate would have it, Kyle Larson finishes P6, and it had rained all night in Iowa, and so he was able to hop on a plane, hop on a jet, do a little John Candy and Steve Martin, little planes, trains, and automobiles, and he was able to get there and win the Knoxville Nats. And I want to be clear on this. I want to be absolutely clear. What I'm about to say is not trying to limit Kyle Larson. It is not trying to impinge upon his freedom or his money-making ability or anything else. He has the right to do whatever he pleases, and I get that. But I also have the right to express the following opinion. I wish Kyle Larson would go race another series full-time. I wish Kyle Larson would go race another series full-time. Why do I say that? Why do I say that? Let me tell you why. Kyle Larson is arguably NASCAR's biggest star. The Chase Elliott fandom thing has kind of cooled off a smidge. And Kyle Larson has been right there with him as far as merch sales go and things of that nature. And with trying the double and just did an unconventional double on Saturday night, Sunday morning. Kyle Larson's stock as a popular driver is at an all-time high, one that rivals, if not surpasses, Chase Elliott. But here's my thing. We're in an era right now where NASCAR is craving stars. And again, he is one of the true bona fide stars. He's probably one of the few names that people could come up with outside of the NASCAR bubble. And my issue is this. He makes NASCAR always look like his second priority. I mean, he ran right out of the car at Richmond, and I mean, he was boot scooting it like he had just had a bad case of the Taco Bell. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. Because we're in an era where NASCAR needs stars. Kyle Larson is arguably its biggest star, and he always makes NASCAR feel like a second priority. And I'm not sitting here arguing that he doesn't have the right to go race other series and attempt every double in the world. That is not my argument. My argument is it's a bad optics. It is not about he can't go race his dirt stuff and he can't go race in IndyCar and he can't go do whatever in the hell he wants to do. It is an optics issue I have. Now, arguably NASCAR's biggest star makes NASCAR look like it's second fiddle. All the time. Every time he has the opportunity to do that, he will. He proved that during round one of his double, where, remember, he made the choice, I'm going to miss the Coke 600, or at least the start of it, for the Indy 500. And you might say, well, Logan, it's the Indy 500. Okay. All right. Okay. But he just feels more excited to do anything else. He feels more excited to be in Knoxville. He feels more excited to be at the various dirt races he always does in the High Limit Series. And he feels more excited and more prepared and just more committed. And my issue is the optics of, like, we're in an era we need stars in NASCAR. We need stars in motorsports. And he doesn't do anything to push NASCAR. And for those that say, well, it exposes NASCAR to other series. All right, that's fine, but that's where it ends. There is not a metric you can point to that verifies that he brings some eyes back to NASCAR. He certainly puts eyes on the IndyCar product. I guarantee you, Dirt Vision had a great night that he was there, and they treated it like Bill Goldberg was coming in '98 in WCW. Like, there is no world where in my there's no verifiable evidence that he brings people back to NASCAR. He exposes them to NASCAR because, again, he is arguably NASCAR's biggest star. But I'm just real tired of watching NASCAR get and everyone goes, well, that's what pays the bills. How many times do you have something that pays the bills and you want to do something else? Yeah, when you're working a desk job or working the 9 to 5 you're not a huge fan of, you're privileged to drive the number 5 at Hendrick Motorsports. And I know that Kyle Larson has never been shy about his love of dirt racing and about the fact that he doesn't love NASCAR in a traditional manner. It's kind of forgotten about, but he was pretty candid about that during his Chip Ganassi days. My point is it's an optics problem for me. It's not that, oh, well, you want him to stop. No, he can race 25 times a week. I don't give a damn. But I want him to act like NASCAR matters and help sell the sport. Help sell the sport to these other people. Help sell the sport to these other series, these other entities. Because let's look at it this way. Look at how hard Tony Stewart has promoted the NHRA since he made the full-time jump there. He has bent over backwards to promote them and to raise their profile and just try to be a reason for growth in the NHRA, because he respects the NHRA and he loves that type of racing, and he wants to help grow the profile of the NHRA and drag racing as a whole. And I'm not arguing that Kyle Larson doesn't respect NASCAR, but he clearly feels no obligation to help further it. And you might say, well, he's not an employee in NASCAR. Okay, true. You got me. But NASCAR and Hendrick Motorsports are the reason that he has become such a household name. And I'm not putting down the 2 Mile Kyle era, but he wasn't this major star in his Chip Ganassi years. He was an incredible talent, but he was not a bona fide star. When DC Solar was running some sort of scheme, he was just a well-known driver in NASCAR circles. You can make an argument he's the face of the sport right now. We talk a lot about Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin does everything he can do to promote NASCAR. Does a podcast. He's one of the most outspoken personalities, and he's constantly whether I agree with him or not, he's trying to push the ball along of the long-term health of NASCAR, the long-term viewership, the long-term growth of NASCAR. And I'm not asking Kyle Larson to care any less about dirt racing, to care any less about his other series. I'm asking him to just give me some optics that you care about NASCAR a little more than you appear to. You are a major star of a sport that desperately needs major stars, and you make it look like I can fiddle when you run right out, and, well, I got to get to Knoxville. And I get it rained, it gave him the opportunity, but, when you're getting updates from Cliff Daniels during the race about, hey, you ain't gonna believe this, Cliff, shut up. Is that what... Hendrick Motorsports can't find victory lane right now with a compass, and that's what you're concerned about? Maybe mention that on the cool downs in pit road. Oh, hey, by the way, if you move in a hurry, you can... I don't like it. It's bad optics. I'm not saying they don't care or don't love NASCAR. I'm not arguing that. I am richly saying that, man, could you act like you care a little more about what brought you to the dance? What makes you that household name? The reason that Dirt Vision treated you like Tom Brady coming to, sub in for one quarter? That's just my take. That's just my take. Again, if you compare it to guys like Tony Stewart bust his ass promoting NHRA. Bust his ass. Does he do some other racing? Yep. But how much of his media is about furthering along NHRA and TSR? Tons. Tons. Constantly. Ron Capps has done other racing. But do you ever feel like he's not there kind of representing the NHRA? No. Not to me. I get that's a hot take for some people. I know that Kyle Larson is very popular right now, and he's probably the best pure driver in the world, at least the one that NASCAR has to offer. I have great respect for his talent. I have great respect for his results. I think the guy could win in pretty much any equipment in the garage, and that says a lot. I just wish that he helped kind of further the sport along in an era where we need some guys to bust out. I mean, you think about it. How many people can a lapsed fan name? Not even someone that doesn't ever watch NASCAR. A lapsed fan. How many names do your parents or grandparents remotely recognize when they flip on NASCAR racing in 2026? Maybe because they're bored or they just caught it coming out of church or whatever have you. We are starved for real stars, and Kyle Larson is one, and he does nothing to organically promote the sport other than he gives exposure. That's great. That's a valid thing. I'm not arguing that. But does he bring anybody back to NASCAR? Anybody? I don't think so. To me, it's pretty similar to the LA Coliseum argument. Well, we need to try new markets, Logan. That's how you create new fans. Okay. Technically, yes. You're not wrong, kind of. But then when you actually start looking for those fans, you wonder, where are they? Are they in a bunker? Because they're not in the stands. Unless they're decorated up as empty seats. And now there is a couple of things that right now NASCAR is thriving weekly attendance-wise. Cup races are regularly selling out again, and that's great news. However, Cup television audience is dwindling a little bit. Now, is that Kyle Larson's fault or his burden to bear? No. But how about just helping the cause? How about just helping the cause? I'm just saying. Marcus Ericsson won on the streets of Markham, and the big headline of this race was not anything to do with the race. It was that the track wasn't ready for practice day one. And I don't follow IndyCar as closely as I do NASCAR or drag racing, so I don't want to speak out of turn here. I don't want to be uneducated about a topic I'm not as informed in as maybe I should be. But when your track isn't ready on day one of the scheduled activities, it doesn't matter whose fault that is. That looks bad for the whole sport. That doesn't matter who actually failed. It looks like Roger Penske failed. Because it's his series. And so I'm quite certain that something like that will never happen again under Rogers' leadership. But it is stunning that that conversation is having to take place. Stunning. Stunning. These things are booked a year in advance. A year in advance. These new weekends especially. Because they promote them for a long time to try and get a halfway decent crowd. How do you in any way screw the pooch on that? Now again, Roger Penske is a great leader, and soon IndyCar will rebound from this, even if it's just a halfway decent show this weekend in DC. Because I mean, it's going to be what looks like it's going to be an incredible show, right? It looks, politics aside, looks like it's going to be an incredible show. And so they're going to rebound, and we're going to move on, and that's desperately what IndyCar needs, because that is a bad look. That is a bad look. Anywho, what we're going to do right now is we're going to take our first break. I'm gonna grab a beverage. When we come back, we're going to talk some hot lap headlines. We got the Connor Zilic news to break down. We've got the 2027 NASCAR Championship weekend revealed. We got some Chicagoland news to talk about, and we got some Corey Day things to chat about. And then we will get to our lap ahead and preview this weekend. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick breather here, and when we come back, we'll do hot lap headlines, and we will hit the ground running. Don't you move a move. We'll see you real soon. Tired of missing that big play? Fed up with waiting hours for the wrap-up? The local scene deserves more. Heart-pounding. Game-changing. Homegrown. C-Bus Sports. C-Bus Sports brings you live updates, in-depth analysis, and local athlete spotlights all in one place. From high school to pro, they cover the games that matter to you. Get inside access from the locker room to the starting line. Meet the players that Columbus roots for. This is more than sport, it's our community. It's every kid in cleats, every team in the stands, and every fan who bleeds their colors. C-Bus Sports is here for the passion, the pride, and the hometown story. Go to cbussports.com today and be the first in the know. C-Bus Sports. The game doesn't wait, and neither should you. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Racing Angle. We appreciate you. Glad you're here. Leave us a comment down below if you're feeling froggy. If you're feeling froggy, I like to jump as much as I can, given my own limitations. But there's a lot of news to talk about and a little time to get there. So what do you say we get to our Hot Lap headline? All right, Hot Lap headlines. And, of course, the biggest headline of the week is the worst kept secret in NASCAR right now is now official. And that is Connor Zilisch will officially drive the 48 in 2028. I mean, that feels like a presidential slogan, doesn't it? 48 in 2028. Again, to recap, Alex Bowman did sign a one-year extension for 2027. He will run the 48 for the entirety of the year outside of the Daytona 500. The 48 will be loaned to Jimmy Johnson and Legacy Motor Club for that one race. But again, Alex Bowman is back for 2027, but in 2028, his replacement has been officially named Connor Zilisch. And this is huge. This is huge news because I know that Connor Zilisch's stock has cooled off because he is in the midst of one of the worst rookie seasons in recent memory. I mean, there's been some awful ones if you look at the the history of the sport. There's been some embarrassingly bad rookie seasons, and right now Connor Zilisch, little bit of improvement lately, but overall he's been in the midst of a horrible rookie season, and so I know his stock has cooled considerably among a lot of NASCAR circles, given the everybody right now is going time. But I got to tell you, I think this is a great move for Hendrick and Connor Zilisch. You don't want to judge too much off of one rookie year. I will again say, and I've said on this show before, we ask a lot of these rookies in this era. We ask them to do a couple of years of development in lower series, like 1 or 2, maybe 3. And then we ask them to come up to the Cup Series, the top prize of the NASCAR echelon, and then we ask them in this era to do that with less seat time than ever. Remember, great, iconic drivers like Joey Logano, right? Remember, he was sliced bread. That's what Martin called him. He had his struggles at Joe Gibbs Racing, remember. He had the misfortune of replacing Tony Stewart in the Home Depot 20 car. You don't want to make too much of anyone's rookie season, number one. Number two, we're asking them to do it in an era where you have less seat time. Remember, happy hour was constant in that era. You had 1 or 2 major practices a weekend. I mean, practice was a thing. And now, in a post-COVID world, we have some of it back. You have the 20-minute sessions, and that's something. And it does make a difference, but it's vastly less than what it used to be. The only weekend we get an idea of how it used to be is Daytona and Speed Weeks, because they still let them do a lot of practice for Daytona. Other than that, I mean, you think about it, on the super freeways outside of the 500, they don't do practice. You get qualifying, that is it. You get 2 laps to grip it and rip it. and see what you got. And that's a lot. That's a lot for rookies. That's a lot for anybody. I think veterans. I think part of the issue of the late great Kyle Busch in this car was there's a lot. You don't have a lot of time on track with this car. Everything is simulator now. I think part of the issue of Jimmy Johnson in this car has been you don't have a lot of time. It's just simulator now. And I know that people will be quick to go, well, Jimmy's just washed. Maybe, but is he that washed that he's somehow forgotten how to keep a car straight? Or is the car that different from what he's used to? And so when you take that perspective, when a couple of surefire Hall of Famers and a 7-time champ has such trouble with this car, and then we ask a rookie to come in this car, and you had better light the world on fire. And again, am I arguing that Connor Zilisch couldn't have had a better year? Couldn't have a better year? Not at all. No. No, I'm not. I think that some of it has been on him, and some of it has been bad luck, and some of it has just been a laundry list of errors, a series of unfortunate events. To quote the great Lemony Snicket series. And so, so the people that have cooled off on Zilisch, and everybody's all focused on Heim right now, and that's no disrespect to Heim. He's already got 2 race wins under his belt. One of them's a Brickyard 400. But Connor Zilisch, I think, is still going to be a star. And when you take his pure raw talent and you put it in Hendrick equipment, that recipe is something. That's something special. That is something special. And so I just think before you put the cart before the horse, hear me out. I think this is big. This is big. And it was some stunning images yesterday to see Connor Zilisch in the pretty much the Mr. H get up. It was some stunning images. But I think it's a great get for Hendrick, and it's a great move for Connor Zilisch. Of course, that leads the national question of what happens to the third Trackhouse car. Some say, well, might they sell that charter? I don't think so. I don't remotely believe that. I think Justin Marks is committed to keeping the 3. If I had to pick right now, keep your eye on somebody like Caden Honeycutt. It's too soon to say for sure. A lot can and a lot will happen between now and then, because that's a long ways off. But keep your eye on someone like Caden Honeycutt. Could we see someone like Corey Day make the move there if he gets a little impatient? I don't know. We'll talk more about Corey Day in just a moment. Homestead Miami Speedway is hosting the 2027 NASCAR Championship Weekend. That's who's hosting it this year. I'm going to give NASCAR a pass on this one. I'll give you 2 years. I think 2 years is fine. But if by 2028 it's not moving somewhere that's not Phoenix, to be honest with you, then the whole, well, we want to rotate it. What a bunch of bunk that must have been. Because you could start rotating it right now. But I respect that sometimes it takes a while to hammer out those deals, and there's more than goes on to that thing than I personally realize, I'm sure. So I'm fine with 2 years at a place and then going someplace else. I'd like to see it rotate every year eventually, but if that's something that isn't really doable right now, I'm okay with that. But if it ain't moving somewhere else by 2028, I go, So that whole thing about rotating was kind of like Auto Club, huh? You had the best of intentions, but the result just ain't looking right. That's just my thought. Other big news that hit the schedule waves. Chicagoland Speedway is returning again next year. There will be no Chicago Street Course. And I'm just going to say, from my personal opinion, hallelujah. I just. The Chicago Street Course is a cool novelty proof of concept item that I don't mind putting out in markets that need it. San Diego. It's not a bad idea, and I'm not. Oh my God, can't go to Chicago because it's such a bad area. I think that's these people these there are large, massive events that take place every year around the 4th of July, and you know don't I'm not sitting here saying a tragedy never takes place, but by and large, these cities pull off massive 4th of July events just fine, and everybody goes home happy. So I'm not hung up on what you can't go to the streets of Chicago. In my view, it has nothing to do with that. It is you have Chicagoland that is a perfectly good mile-and-a-half racetrack that will put on great racing with this car, and why let it rot? If there is a racetrack in a reasonable vicinity that can be used, why let it rot? That's my take. So it is an anti-street course. It is. I don't love street courses, but again, I think it's a respectable proof of concept. I'm not upset at that. But I'm glad to see Chicagoland back on the schedule, and I think if I had to make my prediction, pardon me, I think that Chicago, the street course, will be back on the schedule sooner rather than later. If I had to make my early prediction, I would say probably back on the schedule in 2028. Pardon me. All right. Now let's talk Corey Day. It was announced that he's returning to the Hendrick Motorsports O'Reilly program next year. Not a huge surprise. We already knew that Bowman was back. And that leads us to this week's edition of Checkered Thoughts. Alright, it is not often that Mr. H holds a major presser that we talk about and break down and all those sort of things. So, but he did this week because of the Connors Ellis news. And here's the thoughts. I'm gonna read it right off just so I got it right. First of all, Corey is a tremendous talent. This is Rick Hendrick, and our plan for him is to be in our future for a long time. Hendrick said during the press conference. People don't realize he's only been on pavement about a year, about a half a year. So it's going to be good to watch him grow, and we have plans for him that go well beyond the next couple of years. So when the time is right, he'll move up. But for now, Corey's learning, and we want to run for the championship in the O'Reilly car next year. So we're excited about him. I love the youth. I love the enthusiasm. I love the energy and the talent. Fascinating quote. Because Mr. H says that they have long-term plans for Corey Day. Why is that fascinating? Because there are 4 seats in the Hendrick stable. The other 3 feel firmly ensconced. Do you see Chase Elliott not driving the 9? Or William Byron not driving the 24? Or Gasp, Kyle Larson not driving the 5? I'm reading the tea leaves here. Reading the tea leaves, maybe Larson has said, "Hey, I'm going to give it a couple more years, but overall, I'm getting out of this thing." Because, as I talked about at great length early in the show, his first choice is not NASCAR. It's dirt racing. And so does that quote mean that there is a plan in a couple of years for Kyle Larson or someone else from Hendrick to step aside? I just can't see a world where Chase Elliott isn't kind of a lifer like his dad. I don't know if he races as long as his dad, but he kind of comes from that same ilk. Again, William Byron feels pretty ensconced in the 24. He's been a blue chip prospect of theirs and firmly in their system, a la Jeff Gordon. So that leaves one, in my opinion, and that's Kyle Larson. And so, is the plan for him to get out in 3-4 years? Now, plans change. I don't want to sound the alarm or act like I got scoop here. I don't. But it's just interesting because Hendrick said people don't realize he's only been on pavement about a half a year, and we have plans for him that go well beyond the next couple of years. So when the timing is right, he'll move up. Where to? Do they loan him somewhere else? I know that them and Spire have a comfortable relationship, but still going to drive for some other organization is not. From the sounds of that quote, that doesn't sound like that to me. So, pretty fascinating stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to take our next break. And when we come back, we got a lap ahead to talk about. We got New Hampshire to talk about. We got the NHRA. They're in Brainerd. And then we will air the interview with Mark Beatty in full. So, we're going to take another quick break. And then we come right back. So, don't you move a move. Again, stay tuned. That interview will be played in full in just a few minutes. Tired of missing that big play? Fed up with waiting hours for the wrap-up? The local scene deserves more. Heart-pounding. Game-changing. Homegrown. C-Bus Sports. C-Bus Sports brings you live updates, in-depth analysis, and local athlete spotlights all in one place. From high school to pro, they cover the games that matter to you. Get inside access from the locker room to the starting line. Meet the players that Columbus roots for. This is more than sport, it's our community. It's every kid in cleats, every team in the stands, and every fan who bleeds their colors. C-Bus Sports is here for the passion, the pride, and the hometown story. Go to cbussports.com today and be the first in the know. C-Bus Sports. The game doesn't wait, and neither should you. And welcome back to the home stretch, the final green flag run, if you will, for this week's edition of the Racing Angle. We appreciate each and every one of you tuning in and keeping an eye on us. Thank you so much. Don't be afraid to leave a comment down below. Couple of things to get to here before we wrap it up. Let's get to our lap ahead. All right, NASCAR is in New Hampshire, Loudon as they call it. New Hampshire, according to some, and they'll be probably fighting over a lobster named Larry or something or other. And look, it's another short track. It's a little different than Richmond, but it's got character to it. And so it is the O'Reilly Series is off until next week. They're back for Daytona. So it is just the trucks, and it is the Cup Series as well. Prediction time here on the show. Truck Series. I'm liking Caden Honeycutt right now. I think he's got the mojo working, and when it comes to Sunday and the Cup Series, You know, there's a couple I keep my eye on, but if I had to pick right now, I'm going to stay in the Penske Ford stable, but I'm not going to go Joey Logano. Give me Ryan Blaney, who's pretty solid at New Hampshire. And I'll tell you what, here's your sleeper pick. Here's your sleeper pick. Do I think they'll win? Probably not. Would I be stunned if they would? No. Josh Berry is, again, a short track ace in that Wood Brothers 21 car as he kind of fights for his professional life and is looking for his next chapter. We know that Jesse Love is going to take over that ride beginning at 2027 in Daytona. And so he's going to take over that ride. And so, again, he's kind of fighting for his life. And this is a good portion of the schedule for Josh Berry, who was in the conversation with Richmond until a little bit of damage kind of, it didn't hurt the car too bad, but it took some wind out of the sail, so to speak. And so that's just something to keep ahead. And then the NHRA returns after several weeks off, kind of a summer break, if you will. They're in Brainerd, Minnesota. That's Greg Anderson country up there, and so he'll be looking to have a strong weekend in pro stock, and so we'll see how that all shakes out. We will of course have recaps for you after each day in Brainerd. We'll break down the provisional number one qualifiers, and then the number one qualifiers, and then the race winners, and all the other big stories of the day, of the weekend. And of course, we'll be keeping an eye on the New Hampshire action as well. If you don't follow us on our socials, if you don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe to that YouTube channel for me. I'd greatly appreciate it. We are one subscriber away at last look from 200, so we'd like to match the king here real soon. If you'd be so kind to hit that subscribe button, and don't be afraid to check out our friends at cbussports.com. Glad to be a part of the team. Especially during the summer months. That's kind of my bread and butter, and so glad to be a part of the team. And check them out because they're going to have a ton of great coverage of high school football all around the state of Ohio, and of course we get football crazy here in the quote unquote Buckeye State. So check them out as well, and don't be afraid to follow me on my X account. With that, what do you say we get to our final lap? Another week has kind of come and gone here on the Racing Angle. I do want to again thank you for your patience waiting patiently for us to get on the air tonight. We had some technical issues, and quite frankly, my dog had to pee. if I can be real with you, and so we just appreciate you tuning in. You should enjoy this interview with PDRA leadership member Mark Beatty. We really enjoyed it. We talked late last week, and so it was a lot of fun, and we enjoyed it very much. So tune in to that. There's some fun tidbits of news, and then we'll see you next week at the same bat time, the same bat channel. We're right down New Hampshire and Brainerd, and we'll just have a boatload of fun. We got a lot of cool guests coming up if everything kind of goes the way we think it's going to go. We got some cool interviews for you. And here's our latest cool interview. Check it out with Mark Beatty of the PDRA Leadership Group. We appreciate you tuning in. Enjoy this interview. Leave your comments. We'll air them. We appreciate you. Till next week, I'm Logan, and we'll see you at the next track. For me, been trying to line this up for a couple of weeks. And hi, hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Racing Angle. And this is a very special one for me. Been trying to line this up for a couple of weeks now, and I'm joined by Mark Beatty, who is kind enough to join us. Of course, he's newly minted. He's a brand new member of the PDRA leadership. Mark, thanks for joining the show.
Man, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. What a great way to start my day. So appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you so much. And hey, look, I'm all with you. We can next time we'll meet over bacon and eggs, and we'll get it going. It's all
I
good.
like I like the way you think.
Look, hey, we're gonna get along swimmingly. So, but to get started, let's go a little way back. For those of us that may not be familiar with you, take us back to the beginning. What originally got you involved in motorsports and specifically drag racing?
Wow, that's a see. I'm old, so you're making me think way, way, way back when or whatever. But I was born and raised in the Denver area, and it's the craziest thing. One day I was looking at the newspaper. Back in the time they had newspapers, and I saw an ad for drag racing at Bannerman Speedway, and it was just like, you know what, I drove out to the racetrack and kind of got hooked from there. Kind of hung out, did a lot of bracket racing. Had a good friend, Jack Fico, at the time. Me and Jack, raced his little '63 Ford Falcon. And then as the time went on, got involved with a guy by the name of Joe Shalkowski, and we ran Comp Eliminator with a Biacano dragster in NHRA Division 5. And then fast forward, for the last, 6 years, I've been brand director for Redline Synthetic Oil. And, one of the first things I did when I was with Redline was sign up and become the title sponsor for the PDRA. And so yeah, that was cool, and that kind of introduced me to Tommy and Judy and everybody in the PDRA. And so when I decided to retire from the opportunity at Redline, it was just kind of a natural fit to slide into the leadership team with the PDRA. I look at things a little bit different angle than what they do, and so far it's been a blast.
So you mentioned you decided to retire from the brand director role. Can you take me back to a moment where you were like, "Oh, this is becoming real. I'm really going to join PDRA and their leadership team"?
Yeah, it was. I left Redline. It was June 1st of this year was my last day, and me and my wife Cindy decided that we're going to relocate to a small town, Nebraska. And so I'm driving from the Houston area to small town Nebraska, and trying to absorb in my own mind. It's like, man, I'm retired. What is up with that? I don't want to retire. I want something to do. And so, I spoke with Tommy on the phone during the drive a couple of times, and we were both like going, hey, maybe this is what it would look like, or maybe this is what we could do, or how we could do it. And so it was funny. I tell everybody I was retired for 29 days, which was 28 days too many, and stuff. So once things started making sense in Nebraska, it was a pretty easy decision to get a hold of Tommy and say, hey, let's rock and roll. Let's do this deal.
And if you don't mind, what exactly is your role with the PDRA, and what's that been like these first handful of weeks on the job?
Well, the PDRA has been led by a young man by the name of Tyler Crossnow, and Tyler is a series director, and more important, kind of runs all of the racing operations. And without a doubt, Tyler is one of the most remarkable young men I have met in a long time. I mean, the kid just gets it. He gets every aspect of race control in the tower. He gets every aspect of what happens out on the track. And so Tyler's been race director for the last, I think, 7 or 8 years, and Tommy and Judy Franklin, who won the series, they're diehard racers. I mean, they're pro mod racers. He's on the PDRA, been on the ownership team of the PDRA since 2012, and so they have always looked at things from a racer angle, right? Because Tommy's a racer, Tyler's a racer, and we start to realize that although there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, to a degree, that's going to start limiting your growth and limiting things because, if you're so racer centric, maybe you're not spending the time trying to get the fans in the stands, maybe trying to get marketing partners and sponsorships and things like that. So it was natural for me because although I was once a racer, I'm a businessman. I've always been an entrepreneur and always been a businessman. So like I said earlier, I kind of look at things a little bit different than what they do. So they can keep concentrating on what they're doing because they're doing a great job, and I can come in and say, hey, let's work on some things. We're already deep in conversation about having a youth program, to where we can work with local high schools on Fridays at our events. And, we're looking at ticketing opportunities. Looking at a couple of sponsors that are maybe outside the automotive industry that kind of broaden our reach, as well. So, in a very short period of time, we all put a lot of irons in the fire. So we got a lot of things happening. It'll be a fun off season, that's for sure.
And you mentioned that you've only been retired for you said 29 days, 28 days too many. What was it about the opportunity at the PDRA that you were like, yeah, I got to, forget about retirement, I got to jump on this?
The excitement, I love motorsports in general. I mean, no question about it. I mean, I've spent time road racing. I spent time with the USAC super modified car, pavement racing. I don't care what it is. I love racing. And so the PDRA, like I said, was just kind of a natural fit for me. I had kind of migrated a little bit back to my roots, and drag racing probably moved back to the top of things. But I don't care. If there's any type of racing on TV, if there's a NASCAR race on TV, I'm watching it. If it just doesn't matter. I love racing. I like the industry. I like the feeling of the industry. I've owned a few businesses in my past, and so I always really loved hiring racers with my business because they've got the greatest mentality. I mean, if you go out and you make a lap around a track, or you make a pass down a track, or you do something like that, the first thing you do is bring the car back in the pit area and say, how can I get better? How can I get faster? How can I get better? Well, they make great employees then as well, because it's like, if we're doing XYZ, that mentality carries over. It's like, we could do this better. We could do that better. So just being around the racing or racer mentality, I think makes us all better.
I couldn't agree more, and I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I love that mentality.
Yeah.
When you first came a couple weeks ago, now that you've had a chance to digest a little bit, I know not much. You're still neck deep in your first entree. But what do you see as the biggest strengths of the organization?
Well, there's no question about it. We have the the strongest racers in the industry. Now, our top level is Pro Mod. We got a category Pro Nitrous and Pro Boost. We kind of separate those two out. So our marquee cars are the Pro Mod cars, and it's just like, we just got through with this race in Bristol last week, and I'm telling you, the product on the track is unlike any others. And look, I get it. I mean, the fuel cars in the NHRA. I mean, so many of those people are my really really good friends, and I still talk with them all the time. Nitro cars are just spectacular, right? There's no question about it. But with us, stopping at the Pro Mod, or highlighting the Pro Mod deal, the competitive nature of Pro Mod cars. We race to the eighth mile, and when cars are separated by less than a thousand, sometime when they come up to the line for Q, or elimination round number one, it's just, the racing is unlike anything I've ever seen before. So our strength is definitely the product on the track. We just got to share it with more people so that we get more people excited about it.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question, Mark. Let's look at the vision board, so to speak. In 2 to 3 years, where do you want the PDRA to be?
Well, we're hoping to expand some. I mean, this year we realized that, just through no fault of our own or no fault of anybody, we had fewer races than what we wanted. I mean, in an ideal world for us, we'd like to have 10 events a year. So we're going to make sure that we try and get back to that number, close to that number. I mean, obviously, sometimes some of our challenges is facilities. A lot of facilities are really busy, so we have to make sure that there's room in a facility schedule, for us to come in, and be a part of a deal, and then just we've talked about, could we do a PDRA East and a PDRA West, series, and potentially expand more than just being on the East Coast side of things or whatever. So we've shared those ideas. We talk about a lot of different things, and just trying to see, what can stick, what might make sense, what's worth the effort and the energy right now to try and do a little bit of looking into that stuff. But But in all honesty, from my eyes, nothing's off the table. We just got to make sure that it financially makes sense and it logistically is achievable.
I gotta pick your brain a little bit here on the expansion of PDRA. How serious? And again, I know you can't tell me too much about how the sausage is made, so you go ahead and give me the answer you'd like.
That's all right.
But I've got to ask, how serious are those conversations about a PDRA East and West in a serious expansion?
Well, I think if we had the path figured out right now, we'd already done it. So I think it's serious enough to where I think those moves would already be taking place. And so obviously, you know, Tommy in the ownership role or whatever. One of the things that I really really like about him, and it's going to be a great balance, is that Tommy's very calculated in the decisions that he makes. Right? There's no knee jerk about anything that Tommy's ever done. And I think that's why the PDRA has maintained and survived for so long and carried the competition level as well as it has, is because Tommy's very calculated. Me on the other hand, I'm a wild card. It's like I told him, it's like when I go to bat, dude, I want to swing for a home run. I'm not going to swing for a base hit. So we're going to really balance each other out. But like I said, I think if the path was there, we'd probably already be working on it. So it's serious enough to make a comment like that, but the path has to be there first.
Well, if that comes to pass, and again, that is if that comes to pass, I'm gonna be back in your email going, we got to talk about this, Mark. We got to talk
No,
about it.
yeah, no doubt. We'll be there, and stuff. That'll be fun conversation. So
So,
you got a
so,
deal.
so I'll be keeping my eyes on it. We're
Yeah.
we're, we're talking about PDRA and how it's established itself as a major drag racing player and sanctioning body in drag racing. What separates it from the other sanctioning bodies in drag racing, whether that be the NHRA or the IHRA or a few others?
Well, we're eighth mile racing, and so I think and it took me just full transparency. I mean, I was a quarter mile guy, my whole life. I mean, I was an NHRA quarter mile guy forever and ever and ever. And so many years ago, even when I first brought Redline on as the title sponsor of the PDRA, I appreciated eighth mile racing, but it was kind of like, oh man, I'm a quarter mile guy. But I'm telling you now that I've been involved with them for such a long time, the eighth mile drag racing is crazy cool, right? And so I think that's a big selling feature. I mean, to the point where it's built into our website, pdra660.com. And I think on the marketing side of things, I mean, we're gonna push that. We're gonna promote that more and more. We're gonna wear that as a badge of honor that we are the premier eighth mile drag racing organization, period. And the competitiveness, the tightness, the quality of car is unbelievable. And so it's you know yeah, I think that's probably one of our biggest points right now, is the fact that, man, if you want to see some of the tightest, fastest, coolest drag racing on the planet, come on out, because that's we got it.
Talk about Bristol for a second. From your perspective, when you first go out there and you're first on the job, when did it click for you that yeah, this is right? This is right for you.
Yeah, pulling in the gate. It was one of those deals. It's like, once again, being in small town Nebraska, travel for me is a relatively unique. It's long days of travel. So as soon as I got there and I pulled in the gate, it was just like okay, I'm on to something that's really gonna carry me and keep me excited. And then it was the first opportunity that I had to meet a lot of the let me rephrase it, really meet a lot of the staff, right? I'd been to enough PDR races and shook hands, said hi and wave and things like that. But at that point in time, I was in the sponsor role, and not part of the team or whatever. So then we sit down and we really start talking, and I get the opportunity to understand the staff that Tyler and Tommy have put together. And they're an incredible group, and talk about just a passion. And so then it's that motivates me, right? Because they're way up here at this level, and I'm the new guy coming in, and I got to be honest with you, I don't want to bring the batting average down. I need to make sure and up my game, so that we all stay up where we belong. And so it was cool. It didn't take long for me to say, yeah, this is gonna be awesome.
Do you do you remember your emotions, kind of walking in, getting comfortable, and going, yeah, this works? Do you remember the emotions of that?
Super nervous, super nervous, even at my age and in all my years of experience or whatever. Simply because I'm old school enough to where I understand that respect has to be earned, and it has to be earned each and every day. It doesn't carry over. And so, when I first walked in and kind of talking with everybody, it's once again, when I saw the level that they're at, I was a little nervous. It's like going, dude, you better bring your A game, because you need to earn the respect of these folks, and they need to know that they can count on you, and you're going to do. I had a really good business mentor for the longest time that taught me a saying that you watch a person's feet, not their mouth. Don't pay attention to what they say they're going to do. You pay attention to what their feet and what they are doing. And so it was like, Mark, you know what? Just remember that advice. Show these people that you're here, that you're a part of the team, that you want to make everything better and stuff. So that was my first one. I was nervous, and I'm going, bring your A game, buddy.
And we're talking about PDRA and its own identity. How important is it to maintain its own identity rather than trying to compete directly with, say, the NHRA or other organizations?
I think it's critically important. I think everybody, and Logan, it's no different than your show, and kind of turning the tables on you just a little bit with that deal or whatever. You have to be yourself, right? You can't try and copy everybody else, because real knows real. And if you're out there trying to copy what somebody else is doing, you're not being real. And I think in the PDRA, it's the same deal. I mean, we're going to wear who we are, like I said, with a badge of honor, because we're very proud of what we have. We're very proud of what we do. And so we don't necessarily worry about what somebody else is doing. It's just, once again, here's the old guy with another saying. My dad taught me growing up the whole time, you worry about what's in your pocket, not what's in another man's pocket. And so that philosophy fits in this too. We need to focus on who we are, what we are, and be the very best at it, and let everybody else, kind of be the same. Now, obviously the water's got a little interesting, with the whole IHRA, situation, and so be it, right? It is what it is. It doesn't change our focus, doesn't change our drive, doesn't change who we want to be. We're going to stay focused on that.
I can tell that your father was a wonderful mentor for you. I just got to ask, what did he think when you decided I'm going to get involved in the racing industry?
Well, he's looking down upon me from heaven. So I lost my pops a few years ago or whatever. So, but I honestly think he would be proud. Probably the thing he'd be the most proud about is the fact that I didn't retire. Because if there's one thing that my dad taught me, it's absolutely to work. Right before he passed, I went and visited him. We came up from Texas, went and visited him or whatever. And it's like, the first words out of his mouth are, "What are you doing here, and how come you're not working?" It's that stuff. So that was my pop's big deal. Is you know what, you son, you're gonna work, you're gonna work, you're gonna work, you're gonna work, and I'm good with that because I love it.
Do you think there's enough room in the marketplace right now for multiple professional, successful sanctioning bodies in drag racing?
Yeah, I think there is. It's the trying to think of the right way to phrase this or whatever.
Sure.
I think as long as everybody plays well together, right? I think, from my perspective, and even before this opportunity at the PDRA, I'm not the world's largest fan of all these big high dollar races. To me they're short term thinking, and I'm not trying to take anything away from. I know the racers, I mean, they run on cubic dollars, and I know they need big prize purses, and I know they need these things, but they're kind of that flash deal, right? It's like they're super super flashy the week that they're happening, and then they kind of fade away. And then they're super, super flashy, and then they're kind of fade away. You can't sustain that level of things. And so I think in the end, sometimes it's like, is that really the healthiest thing for all of motorsports, right? I think consistency is the key. So I think as long as the sanctioning bodies, we work very, very, very well with Keith Haney and the Midwest Pro Mod Association. Keith is probably the closest one that does what we do. You know what? And we work well with Keith. We make sure that we don't schedule events on top of one another to the best of our abilities. Once again, sometimes you get stuck with what openings a facility has and stuff. But we work really well with him. We try and base our schedule around NHRA events because we have a lot of pro mod guys that run, quarter mile pro mod in the NHRA and run with us. So collectively, as long as we all keep working together like that, I think there's room for everybody. And mainly because there's a lot of geographical differences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And stuff. And so I think that's what helps the racer as well, is the fact that there's hopefully enough races in their geographical region to where it's fairly easy for them to travel to and get out and do some racing.
How important is that for you guys when you're making the schedule, when you're thinking long term, to kind of keep all those options and lanes open?
That's been a big driving force for Tommy and Tyler in the past, right? Especially as we have teams that are running for championships and things like that. The vast majority of our racers, they all have regular jobs. They all have families. They only have so much time. And so if you had all your points leaders and all the categories having a phenomenal year, and then all of a sudden, you schedule a race that takes them 3 days to drive to or whatever, odds are they probably can't do that. So now all of a sudden, based on your schedule, maybe you just took somebody out of championship potential. And so Tommy and Tyler, once again, with the racer mentality that they have, that's been so successful for the PDRA, they think about that all the time. They don't want to put any of our racers in a tough spot. And so I think that's what's led to a lot of the conversation. It's like, well, okay, can we start a West series then, or this series or that series, and then racers can stay geographically where they need to be and make things happen. So I think it's very important.
We're talking about racers, and have you had a chance to talk to racers? And what are you hearing from them if you have? What do they need from a sanctioning body? What do they need from the PDRA?
Well, there's no doubt, in Bristol, a lot of them came up to me, and a lot of them were very, very welcoming and very excited. They appreciate the fact that maybe I can look at things different. But I think the number one thing is also, at least my number one concern or goal or wish or hope, is that we just need spectators. I got asked that from just about everybody. Hey, what are you going to do spectator wise? What are you going to do spectator wise? And my answer was the same. It's like, there is no one magical answer for that, because if there was one magical answer for that, every single race series, every single promoter, every single event in the world would have already done that, right? And stands would be full. So it's a combination. I mean, it's 100 little things or whatever that number is, and so that's what we're going to focus, because we want our racers to race in front of more spectators. We want that feel, we want that energy, we want that excitement. And so when I was in Bristol, I took the time. We had a little bit of a rain delay, and I went in the stands and I shook the hand of every single spectator that was at that race, and had a conversation with a lot of them and says, "Hey, what do you think?" And things like that. And so, I'm just kind of digesting a lot of the things that I heard, because I want to hear what they have to say as well, and see if we can't work on that. So spectator count is paramount.
Was there any one thing that spectators told you that kind of stuck out that you're really, really kind of marinating over?
No, nothing. Once again, earth shattering, right? You hear people talk about ticketing bundles, X amount of price for a full carload of people, this, that, and the other thing. So you hear a lot of that stuff, and none of that's new, right? There's a lot of people that have tried, various things. I think one of the ones that we'll definitely stay away from is, a couple of people says, well, just give away a bunch of free tickets to spectators. And I'm not a fan of that. I don't think any of us are kind of a fan of that, because there becomes a fine line that you're really starting to cheapen your product at that point in time. And absolutely positively, no offense to anybody that's ever given away free tickets to their event, everybody has their own motivation or whatever. But what I would rather find is a ticketing partner that we can run a lot of those promos and that type of stuff with. That way we could kind of turn it into hopefully a great marketing opportunity for that partner, that would then maybe involve some wonderful opportunities for tickets for the spectators and things like that. So yeah, that's the big one.
We're talking about growth in terms of the kind of the PDRA audience. How important, in your view, is the media in that, in television, in streaming, whether it be people like me, journalists? How important is all of that in this equation?
Well, we have a wonderful relationship with the people at Flow. Flow broadcasts every one of our races. They do all day Friday qualifying. They all do Saturday eliminations and stuff. And so Flow is a great partner for us. And the beauty of that is that we all recognize that we need to make sure that product being seen is better and better and better each time. And when we have a partner with Flow, we have meetings before every event, and I've kind of obviously been involved in a couple one, and it's just really encouraging to hear Flow saying, "Hey, we can do this better. We can do this. How about doing this? Let's do this. Let's do this." Because you do. I mean, once again, for an organization or for a race series like us that's so focused on the East Coast, you're probably not going to get a lot of fans to fly in from California or Nevada or wherever you want to go, but they're diehard fans, and so them having the ability to watch it on a streaming network or streaming channel obviously is super super important.
And then how important is, say, media coverage, in your opinion, from the track? People like myself coming in and covering and writing. How vital is that to the growth of the PDRA?
On a 1 to 10, it's about a 25. It's very important because the media like that, you guys are the voice. You guys are the voice that sometimes we can't carry. I tell people all the time, it's like when you're in whatever business, let's pretend that you build sliding doors. It's because I'm looking at my sliding door. Of course, as the manufacturer, you're going to say, we make the best sliding doors on the planet. Our sliding doors do this. Our sliding doors do that. Well, from our perspective, when somebody talks to me about the PDRA, of course, I'm going to say, we're the best. We're the best. We're the best. We're the best. I mean, I'm not going to say we're the third best, right? But then when media comes in, you guys come in as a more neutral, point of view. And so when the media comes in and they start talking about the quality of racing and they start talking about the quality of events, it takes on a whole new meaning for the person that's reading that, because it's real and it's authentic, and it's not like a paid advertisement for something. So we love our media partners. There's no question about it. We would be so lost without them. And once again, hopefully we could just keep getting more and more and more of them. So yes, you need to come to a race.
All right, we'll talk about it. Let's make that happen, my friend.
Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. Do you think the PDRA has done enough to tell the stories of the drivers and the teams? Yes, we all love cars. We all think they're cool. They're badass. They're awesome. But it is a changing world right now, Mark. As far the old school car culture, it's not dead. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as vital as it once was. And so, how does the PDRA do a better job of telling the stories of the drivers and its teams?
Just like you said, I think teaming up with media partners, because I do think that's a very strong way of getting the messaging and getting things out there that maybe from time to time. And once again, I just kind of have a view from the cheap seat, that maybe hasn't taken place as well as it could be, in the past and stuff. So, we have some phenomenal racers that have amazing stories. It's like talking with Lyle Barnett, easily probably one of the most recognizable names in pro mod racing. And I was talking to Lyle at Bristol, and he was telling the story. He says, "You know what, Mark?" He says, "I've made almost 300 passes this year in 16 different cars." And think about that. What a phenomenal story. And so, we had the people at Flow go over and kind of talk with them, and that gave us some great talking points over the PA system every time that Lyle went up there to run and stuff. We kind of talked about that. So the stories are out there. I mean, from the young kids that have started as junior dragster that are maybe racing their first pro mod race or their first pro 632 race. The stories are out there, and we definitely need to focus on that. I feel a little bit more than what we have.
Everyone has their own take on this next question. How do you think you attract younger fans to the grandstands, to the races? Again, I'm not putting down car culture and the old school
No.
at all, but also I think every sanctioning body, no matter whether it's drag racing, whether it's NASCAR, whether it's whatever it may be, is struggling with the idea of how do they make new fans to sustain the sport for years to come. What's your take on how that can be done?
Well, obviously, our junior dragster program is probably one of the strongest of any sanctioning body out there. So we have a huge contingent of junior drag racers, but it's even as we were talking about them, even that's kind of a select group, right? Because the entry level, when junior drag racing first came out, it was truly an entry level deal. I mean, it's a 5 horsepower Briggs and Stratton motor. Well, now they're $15,000 billet motors, and so the entry level of junior racing has changed drastically, but it's still important. It's still a vital part. You just have to capture the families that have that disposable income. But I think that's why we're also talking about, and Lyle Barnett. Speaking of Lyle, he's the one that cornered me, called me after Bristol, and said, "Hey, Mark, I really want to champion a high school program, around the PDRA. He goes to lots of races. I go to a lot of races. We've seen what some of the other sanctioning bodies do. Lyle and I talked about what we like, what we don't like about what some of them do. But so we're gonna tailor our program. It's going to be incredibly hands-on and incredibly interactive. We're not going to bring a group of high school kids to the race and make them sit there for an hour and listen to a bunch of people talk, right? I mean, our goal is that we're going to get them there, and then we're going to divide them up into groups, and each one of them is going to go with a team, and they're going to spend their time with that team in that pit area. And then we're gonna focus it around, hopefully like on Fridays, Q1. And so then those kids are going to be up close and personal as that car and that team they've spent all that time with. They're going to go up to the racetrack, and they're going to be a part of Q1 and stuff. So what we're trying to do is maybe complete that experience for them. And once again, because not all of them would ever be able to afford a car, to drive a car. Uh, but I tell you what, every team out there is always looking for crew help. For example, what a great place to start, right? Just come out and be a crew. That's how I got started. I was a crew guy in a bracket car and stuff. And so Lyle and I are working really hard on that, trying to make it extremely, extremely interactive and partner them up with some super cool race teams and things like that. I mean, we have NFL superstar Fletcher Cox, that races with us or whatever. I mean, it's like how cool would it be if you were a high school kid and you got to go spend the day on Fletcher Cox's, team and car and stuff like that. So I think we have a lot of things that we can offer that baby steps in trying to ensure that the youth is involved and keeps going forward with us.
We're talking about Lyle Barnett, and of course, his resume speaks for itself.
Huh.
But from your perspective, how validating is it that he believes in your vision, that he is seeing what you're going on with? I mean, that just has to be a little validating for you because, again, Lyle has been there, done that, and got the T-shirt, right?
Yeah, priceless. He defines real knows real if there's any racer that does out there or whatever. And so he understands that he wants to keep racing. He loves the PDRA product, and so he's willing to invest his time, energy, and effort in making sure that we expand it and keep doing the right thing. And it's just like I look at it, like, how fortunate are we, right? I mean, it's just like, it's just it's a blessing, when a guy like Lyle says, "Hey, I want to champion a deal with you. Let's go."
Professional motorsports ultimately has got to be financially sustainable. We've seen some of that lately with the IHRA and all of that. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge facing the kind of drag racing ecosystem right now?
Yeah, what a wonderful question that is. I think it's like a lot of things. I think it's a combination. I think cost is obviously the biggest hindrance for everybody, for teams, for new teams, old teams. The cost of things is just crazy, right? And so I don't know how you fix that. So I'm not doing a very good job answering that question for you, because that's, honestly, that's a really tough one. But I think, somehow we got to kind of control and manage costs. That's why we like our sportsman racer. We have an Edelbrock bracket bash at all of our events, because it helps, maybe some less funded people, be able to participate at our events. I love Top Dragster, Top Sportsman, but let's face it, those cars are getting just like wicked crazy. I mean, they're the the Top Sportsman cars are a friggin' blink away from being a pro mod car, anyway, and stuff like that. So, but that goes back to the same deal. That's just the racer mentality, right? It's like when Junior Dragster started. We're racers. We don't leave anything alone. We're not going to race a stock, 5 horsepower Briggs and Stratton. It's like, here, hold my beer. Watch this.
How much do I need? The answer is more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like I said, racing runs on cubic dollars. And I don't know that that's ever going to change, but I do think that as certain things escalate, you always need to have replacements down here to keep people participating, right? Whatever that may look like. I think it's just a natural evolution that you just have to keep things going.
What do you think the biggest misconception about the PDRA is right now?
I don't know that there's a misconception. I just don't think enough people know about us. Just plain and simple. I mean, if you know, I mean, when you know, and if you know about us, you understand that the product and the quality of car and the racing is second to none. So I think our biggest deal is just spending more time trying to do a better job of letting people know who we are, and I think the rest of it sells itself.
So, kind of piggybacking off that, for somebody that's watching the PDRA the first time this season, say they heard about your involvement and they said, "I've got to check this out." He's got a hell of a resume, thanks to being brand director at Redline all those years, and just you're a drag racing lifer, and maybe that gave somebody, and maybe that inspired somebody to go, "I have to check them out." What should they be paying attention to if they're watching for the first time?
Quality. Just how well the events are run, the quality of the car, the quality of the people. And once again, especially as we get better telling driver stories and behind the scenes things like that, it once again, it'll sell itself. We just got to get the eyeballs on things.
I like to close with a couple of fun ones, Mark, because I like to pick brains.
Okay.
So, what's something that most people don't know about you that obviously you're willing to share?
Oh my gosh, what is something most people don't know about me? I could go extremely deep and personal. And what do I care? That's what I'm gonna do. I have a serious confidence issue. I lack confidence, and I have my entire life. And I
Uh,
think and I think that's what motivates me to keep going. Is that I'm constantly battling self confidence.
as someone with an anxiety disorder, I can relate to that.
Yep,
That took some bravery, meant that, man. Thank
that's
you.
that's deep and personal, no
Yeah,
doubt.
thank you. Thank you so much for that. Seriously, that takes some guts, man. And if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing? If you weren't in drag racing, say you never got involved, say you never took the chance and was a pit crew member, what do you think you'd be doing?
I'd be the world's worst professional golfer on the planet, but having a lot of fun at it. But I'd be the guy chasing balls in the rough, in the forest, in the trees, swimming in the lake. I love to golf, but I suck at it. But I don't care.
And then we didn't get a chance to talk about, so I want to talk about it now. Who were some of the people that drew you into the sport? Who were some of your heroes? Who'd you enjoy watching? Who were some of your influences?
Well, way back when I had the opportunity and I started a sign and graphic company, I was in Denver at the time, and I was fortunate enough to hire a lifelong friend, a guy by the name of Johnny Pugh, that came to work for me. Just a phenomenal artist. And so, at the time, Johnny had already spent so many years out in California, and so as soon as I hired him, we took on customers like Don Prudhomme, and we took on customers like the Colettas. And so, as soon as I got the opportunity to meet these people and to deal with these people and talk with these people, man, it was truly a game changer. And then I started a satellite location in Laverne, California, and we were located in Brackett Field, a little airport right at the end of the drag strip in Pomona. And that was about the time that the NHRA was just opening up their museum, and so I got the contract to do all the interior graphics and everything for the museum. And Wally Parks and myself became really, really close friends. I mean, we worked together, we did a lot of things. It's like talk about a true honor to be able to spend as much time as I did with Wally and get to know him, the way that I did. It was, once again, something I'll never forget. Somebody that motivates me, and I'll never forget that.
Well, I got to ask, how does Wally Parks inspire your leadership style today? Do you kind of keep him with you as you drive the PDRA forward?
I do, because he was one of the most positive people that I ever met. I mean, sanctioning bodies, drag racing, things like that. It's tough. It's hard. There's 1,000 things that can go wrong at any moment, and there might be one thing that can go right. And so you could spend all your time focused on all the things that could go wrong, or like what Wally did. Wally always focused on what was right. And it showed in his attitude, it showed in how he carried himself, it showed in every conversation. And so I try and do the exact same thing. I want to be remembered as the guy that was at least always positive. I always try to have a smile on my face. When people really start barking around me, my go-to saying is like, "Hey, let's catch our breath," because to be perfectly honest with you, we're not saving babies or curing cancer here. We're just racing and stuff, right? Not criticizing what important topic might be going on, but it's just like, first and foremost, let's keep it in perspective, and now let's go after and kind of talk about solutions or whatever. So I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy that everybody remembers as, hey, you know what? He was always positive.
And then, last big question for you: in 5 years, how would you define your tenure at PDRA being a success? Is there one statistic? Is there one fact? Is there a couple sentences where you say, if I got this done in say 5 years, that's success?
Full grandstands, plain and simple. Right now, a sponsor or two outside the automotive industry, and full grandstands. And then I could look at myself in the mirror and go, great way to ride off into the sunset, brother. You did good.
Well, you're not planning on riding off in the sunset anytime soon now.
No.
So,
I like working too much, so the 5-year deal's not a problem.
well, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the Racing Angle. I want to give you the chance to talk about anything you want to talk about or promote anything that you want to promote right here and right now. You have the floor. Thank you so much. And again, is there anything you'd like to say or promote or talk about? Go for it.
Man, I'd like to ever just encourage everybody. You know what? Go to pdra660.com and check us out. Check out our schedule. Pay attention to who our sponsors are, but more important, if you don't have a Flow subscription, get one. I mean, it's cheap. It's cheap compared to everything else in this world. Let me rephrase that. It's inexpensive compared to everything else in this world. And come see either in person or through Flow Racing what we're all about. I promise you're gonna love the product, no question about it.
Well, again, Mark, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck the rest of the season as you get kind of settled in your role. And I think, all due respect, I think you got to come back on next year and we talk about the
Yeah,
schedule and we talk about the comings and goings and seeing how that expansion effort is coming.
yeah. Hold my feet to the fire. Come on next year. And it's like, all right, dude. You better brag about things you did right,
Yeah, absolutely,
because the world's
absolutely.
the world's going to see everything that we did wrong. So it's like, come brag about the things that are right. So I'll hold you to that, Logan. It'd be a blast to come back on.
That first week of January, I'll be going. Mark, are you ready? Mark, are you ready? Let's get it
Who
on.
who is this, Logan? Who?
New phone, who this, as the young kids say. I hear you.
Yeah.
So, but thank
All
you
right.
so much, Mark, for coming on, and God bless you, and best of luck the rest of the season.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you, man.